matching 7-year contracts at 8.5 AAV for their Vezina Trophy winning goaltender Connor Hellebuyck and their longtime number one center Mark Scheifele. What was your initial reaction when you saw the alert that the Jets did it not with just one player but two?
Wow was the first one, and then good for the Jets fans was the second one. I think there's a lot of different angles to come at this with. I'd say the first thing is, look, if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, you got two elite players locked up probably till the end of their careers. And these are guys that you're going to pay tickets to go down to the rink, watch them play. They're great players. The team is better because you have them on your team. So if outside looking in, and I'm not in Winnipeg, I'm not trying to be a Jets fan or understand what it's like in that city, but you got two great players locked up. Is it longer? Is it more money than you probably would like to see? Of course it is, because these guys were going to be free agents that could do whatever they want. So that's what it takes. I understand the side of it as well, whereby you're looking at comparables for a goalie, for instance, who is going to earn that contract over the next 8 years, the 1 year left and then 7 more. And he's 30 years old. It's very unlikely that is the case. You look at, Carey Price is a recent example of a guy in his mid-30s, still playing at a really high level, got hurt, career's effectively over. Other guys that have been elite like Hellebuyck have played a little longer, but the performance tails off a bit. That's just going to be what it is. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Of course, these may not age gracefully, but the cap's going up and you get them at a dollar amount that's not ridiculous, and they're locked in. And everyone's just been leaving Winnipeg, right? You got two players, star players, putting a stake in the ground saying, we're staying here and we want to try to win.
Well, and listen, you just mentioned, there has always been a narrative that no one wants to come to Winnipeg. And certainly for the last couple of years, all we've heard about is this doomsday scenario at the end of all of these contracts of guys that have been, really the core of the Winnipeg Jets, that everything was going to be gone. There definitely is a psychological boost, I think, to the fan base right now to have these players come back. But I also think, Mike, it sends a big message to everybody else in that locker room. Certainly the new players that have just come in from the Kings, the young players that will be moving into this organization this year and next year and the year after. A lot of other tangible benefits other than having these guys out there producing the way they have throughout their career.
Yeah, and that's an important element in all of this that you have to consider. It's not just the on-ice performance. You are trying to sell season tickets. You're trying to make the playoffs. You're trying to generate revenue. There's a lot of things that go into it. I'd say, again, for hockey fans in Winnipeg, there are unbelievable fans out there. This should ensure that the team should be competitive for the next number of years, 4, 5, 6, pick whatever you want, which is good. And I think the world of Connor Hellebuyck, I think I've been on with you plenty of times, Andrew, and we talked about him and how great I think he is. Mark Scheifele is still a guy that can fill the net. Good playmaker, probably better than he gets credit for. Defensively, look, I think it is what it is at this point. He's not awful by any stretch, but I don't think you're also going to see a new leaf turned over where he becomes Patrice Bergeron. So that's what it is. He's a great player. And he could be a number one center on a good team. So that's what you've got. My concern could be this, and I'm not saying that I wouldn't assign these guys. I'm just saying my concern could be this. Are the Jets now going to just be good enough or long enough without ever being a playoff big time threat? Let's go win a Stanley Cup. Are they going to find themselves in a couple of years or over the next few years kind of in and around the mix to make the playoffs, maybe third in the Central, maybe win a round? You don't want to be that team for the next 5, 6, 7 years. We just saw another team in the Central Division say we've had enough of being that team, and that was Nashville.
Yeah, and they've obviously made a big turnover with their roster and have gone a little bit younger this year. The Jets do have, Rucker McGrory projects to be in the lineup next year. We'll see what happens with Brad Lambert and Chaz Lucius. Some younger players getting ready to move into that group. But I would say that Hellebuyck, but Scheifele as well. Obviously they're identical contracts. Having Hellebuyck in the net immediately makes the Jets competitive night in and night out. And
yeah,
hell, we saw another highly paid goalie help his team go on a run last spring with the Florida Panthers. I'll say this, about both of the contracts. I'm amazed that they were able to get Hellebuyck done for the number and the term that he did. I mean, just based on what he's done. Well, and here's why. I mean, he's now the 4th highest paid goaltender in the National Hockey League. Usually when you have a guy with the results and the numbers that he's put up and the success that he's had, you know, usually when you think about the time that has passed since those other contracts were signed, you're kind of getting closer to resetting the market. Now, maybe the summer discussions around the league bore out that money wasn't there, and they realized that this is actually around what the best deal was going to be. But you know, when you think about the 10.5, the 10, the 9.5 that is already out there, you know, for Hellebuyck to come in at 8.5, certainly, and I was looking at some of the other evolving hockey numbers. I mean, they had in at 9.2 for 7. Like, I thought they did a good job, but and then the fact that they got both of these guys to buy in together for the same amount, it is unique. It has happened before. I mean, we saw Kane and Taves do it. Certainly the Wild with 2 unrestricted free agents and Suter and Parise. What were those 12-year deals? Seen some comparison to that, a little bit different.
$96 million or something. Yeah.
But I mean, there's financial security for both of these guys and their families, but there also is an element of a really outward buying into the Winnipeg Jets, the direction of this team, that I don't think can be understated both in the market, but also as a message to the rest of the league, or maybe the guys in Toronto mainly, that tell us over and over again that everyone just wants to get the hell out of here ASAP.
Yeah, that is a huge part of it. And I think you make an excellent point. Because whether that narrative is true or not, the reality is that there have been marquee players that wanted to leave. Maybe it has nothing to do with the city. Maybe it was something with the team or the organization or their own personal preference. It could have been any number of things, but it was happening. So this protects against that, right? Because who wants to go play in Edmonton? Oh, what if you get McDavid and Draisaitl? Now a lot of people want to go play in Edmonton. Who wants to go play in Ottawa? Well, they're an up-and-coming team in the Canadian market that would be a blast to play in. I'm from Ottawa. I'll pump that city's tires anyways. But so it sends a message. Look, we got a good team. I project the Jets this year to finish in a wild card spot and make the playoffs. So they're a solid team. They obviously lost a little bit of high end with what's gone on recently, but they made up for it with a little bit more depth. Gabe Vilardi on the NHL Network was my breakout player of the year in the league to watch for. And that's when I thought he might be second line center playing with Ehlers. Now he's top line with Scheifele. So they're a good team. They're a good team. Hellebuyck will ensure, like you said, that they're always going to be competitive anyways. The Jets, I thought, made strides for a good chunk of last year defensively, certainly much better than years past. Dipped a little bit, but I think Rick Bowness brings that structure there that as long as they're buying into it and executing, they will be fine. And then, you know, Hellebuyck, I go back to look at the last 2 seasons. He's top 5 in the league in goals saved above expected, which is where I go right away to evaluate a goaltender, an isolated goaltender performance. And he's there with the big boys, with Saros and Shesterkin and Sorokin and Vasilevsky. So the only thing about the number that I would say I did, kind of surprised me a bit was I can't imagine another team giving Hellebuyck that contract next year, 7 years at that dollar amount. I think the age would be the thing that would scare you. I could see a lot of teams going 4 years, 5 years. Maybe some would have, but in the end, you're a Jets fan. There are so many teams that wish they had Connor Hellebuyck or anything that even looked like Connor Hellebuyck. So you got him for another 8 years. Be excited.
Mike Kelly, NHL Network with us. Mike, you mentioned you think the Jets can be a playoff team. Listen, Blake Wheeler is gone, and I think that was more kind of moving. I mean, Blake was pretty productive last year when he still had 55 points.
I think they needed to shake up the dynamic.
Exactly. And that's going to be a lot. I mean, we'll see how the identity of this team grows throughout the year, how things will be different. They've got a heck of a leader in Adam Lowry as the captain, in a bit of a different role than maybe some of the top players on teams that are the captain. I think a lot of that is about culture and about buying in. But with Dubois leaving and the 3 guys from the Kings coming in, when you look at this team on paper, are the Jets better than they were last year? Have they taken a step back, or are they just different? And I guess we'll see 382.
That's really tough to answer without seeing it, right? Because you can do what I do, which is the player archetype modeling, line projections, team projections, all that stuff. It's on paper. We haven't seen these guys play together in the regular season, and there's always elements of chemistry that we cannot quantify. So I don't have an answer for you in terms of will they or won't they. I think they have every opportunity to be just as good and potentially better because, like you said, they're deeper. Like, I don't see why Gabe Vilardi can't score 30 goals playing on that top line, getting power play time. He's great in front of the net. He works well in tight spaces. He's got a good shot. I think he can be a 30 goal, 70-point guy. Maybe that's this year, maybe it's next year. I think that's what he can be anyways. Iafallo's a well-rounded guy. You can use him in a lot of different situations. So it adds balance, obviously. But again, ELD's gone. Guy's a heck of a player who plays down the middle too. So I think you do have some of that luxury where I know they're starting Vilardi on the wing. Perfetti's going to get second line center. Look, you can slide Vilardi into the middle if you need to. You can move some things around. So they're not stuck. So I think they have every opportunity to be as good as they've been last year and potentially better.
What are your thoughts about Cole Perfetti moving into the middle? I mean, obviously he played there as a junior player. First couple of years in the league, had been mostly on the wing, and he's had a couple of injuries that have, set him back significantly and made him miss a bit of time. Both the challenge for a young player to move into the center and thoughts on Cole's ability to be productive there.
Yeah, it'll be a new experience, obviously, for him, especially top six center role. That's not easy. I think it would be, talking to guys that have played in the league and gone through similar type of experiences, starting in the wing, then moving to the middle, can be very helpful. You understand, obviously, what your wingers are doing and playing that position. You're going to be deeper in the defensive zone playing center. You're going to have different responsibilities, obviously. I think what helps Perfetti is how well he thinks the game, hockey IQ, kind of anticipation. I think he's got a lot of gifts in that sense, and that ultimately will help a centerman. A lot of great centermen have that, but ability aside, I think he thinks the game very well, and that's going to help him playing in the middle. I wonder, Paul Stastny maybe is one of the most intelligent players the league has seen in a while in the way that he thinks the game. I'm the fastest guy, didn't have the hardest shot, but he was so reliable and just thought the game so well. Maybe if Winnipeg can find something in that mold with Perfetti in that sense, that'd be a pretty big win.
Mike, you mentioned you do like the Jets as a playoff team. How do you see the Central shaking out this season?
Look, I like Dallas a lot. I've always kind of liked them. I've always liked them in kind of like that second tier of real legit contenders. They might be kind of moving up into the lower part of the first tier, I think, with Ottinger's progression. They have a great team, more balanced than they've had before. Mira Heiskanen's a top defenseman in the league. I'd have them top 5. I like them. Them in Colorado, I think, will be jockeying for those first couple spots. After that, I think it gets, it wouldn't shock me if there were couple of different teams that could finish 3rd, 4th in the division. Like, I don't love Nashville's team, and obviously they're going in a bit of a different direction here, but UC Saros, like Hellebuyck, like he's going to win you games on his own and probably keep them in the mix. Minnesota, I still think, is probably the next after Colorado, Dallas. That's why I've got Winnipeg in the 4th spot and in a wild card position. And you go from there. Like, St. Louis is a bit of an interesting one. I've heard different opinions on, I think they're going to be a playoff team, or I think they're going to take another step back and miss. I don't have them in now. So I think that's the top 4 in some, and I do think Colorado and Dallas are kind of the class of it. It was interesting hearing some people like getting pretty high on Arizona, which I think they're going to be better. Obviously, they went out and got some real NHL players this year. I can't see a scenario where they make the playoffs. Like, we're talking about a monumental jump, which can happen. We saw New Jersey did it, but boy, am I not comparing those teams. So they should be more competitive, but I still think they got a ways to go.